the City of Round Rock Police. This is Assistant Chief Corey Cheetah with Georgetown Police Department. Dee Hobbs with our County Attorney's Office. I'd like to start off real quick, give a few ground rules for tonight. First of all, thank the City of Round Rock for letting us use their facility. We have a limited amount of time in here, so we'd like to ask you to keep your questions brief so we can kind of move through this as expediently as possible. Remind everybody, we're not here to debate the law. What our goal is tonight is to try to educate, what we're going to do as an organization, what Georgetown's going to do as an organization, and how we work with the county attorney, county and district attorneys with this. We understand there's a lot of questions people have, so we'll try to give you the best answers we can. Please be polite, be respectful of other people's opinions, even if it differs from yours a little bit. During the live stream, if you want to tweet your questions using the hashtag OpenCarryQA, we'll try to answer your questions as soon as possible. If you want to ask a question, please approach the podium so we can get it. It's being live streamed tonight, so we want to be able to hear the questions clearly. If you rather not come up, you can write your question down. Angelique Myers over here also has a microphone. She can bring it to you if you'd rather speak from the chair. So with that, kind of like to open it up to your questions. So if anybody has a question and would like to come down, I'd like to start off, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
What's the county going to do to discourage swatting, and are people that make false reports going to be prosecuted?
Well, yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you for asking. From our department standpoint, if somebody files a false report and we can prove it, then we will absolutely pursue charges on that. We stay in constant communication with our county and district attorney's office. So if that situation were to occur and we could prove that's what happened, we would absolutely pursue charges.
Along the same lines, there's also been precautions put into place and that y'all have been working on from dispatch all the way through officer contact to try to help avoid that issue. So,
we didn't really hear the question.
I'm sorry?
We didn't really hear the question.
Okay, his question was if somebody was swatting, which is making a false report, essentially calling in saying someone had a gun when they didn't have it, would we pursue charges? And the answer is yes, we would. If anybody else would like to ask a question, come down. How you doing?
Hello, I'm Don Wood. The question I've got is to carry a gun or pistol, do you need anything other than a concealed handgun license, or do you need any other kind of documentation to show that you bought the gun legally, or what do
No,
you
sir.
need? What do you need to carry a gun?
You need your concealed handgun license.
Pardon?
You need your concealed handgun license.
What about proof of purchase, anything like that?
No, sir.
Okay.
How you doing?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
My name is CJ Grisham. I'm the president and founder of Open Carry Texas. Obviously, this is a law that we worked really hard to get passed.
Right.
One of the things that my members and Texans all across the state are asking me and our organization is, how is law enforcement here in Round Rock and the surrounding communities, how are y'all going to handle when you have to answer a call for service for an individual who's doing nothing else other than going about his day and happens to be carrying an openly holstered handgun?
Excellent question. Thank you for asking. That's part of the training we've pushed out through to all of our officers and our dispatchers. It starts with our dispatch, asking some more questions, and in particular, what is the person doing that's alarming to you? What are they doing? Are they doing anything that's illegal? Those are the things that we want to know before we go over there. Our position on this is we are not going to use open carry as a means to go start an investigative detention. We recognize it is a law. you know, so we're not going to approach that situation unless we have a reason to be there that indicates this person might have been involved in some illegal activity or is involved in illegal activity. So,
Great. But Chief, I appreciate that. My members appreciate that.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
I actually have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask if it doesn't bother anybody else. But the law states that the firearm must be in a shoulder holster or a belt holster. Is it going to be a requirement to have any type of retention device?
The law right now does not call for it to have that. You know, from a law enforcement perspective, I would recommend a level 2 or higher. But at this point, it does not call for any special retention.
Okay, second question I have, if I approach a business and the 30-06 sign is posted, but the 30-07 sign is not.
Both have to be posted. If they don't want
Way
open
to
carry, it
enforce.
has to be posted.
Okay, thank
And
you.
you should see these signs right here.
My understanding is that I need a concealed carry permit to carry a gun openly in my front yard, okay, of my own property. The issue I'm having is when I work outside in the front yard, I'm getting harassed by adult men. Is there any particular rules that I should know in addition to having that? Because it's kind of I want to have it concealed generally, but in the summer, in summer clothes, carrying concealed is pretty impossible for a woman.
Right, yeah. Okay, so you're wanting to carry?
I have to carry openly in the summertime. I don't think it will work out real well to be carrying concealed. And frankly, it's on my own property.
Right, well, your concealed handgun license allows you to do that.
Okay, and I definitely do need one, is my understanding, even
Yes,
if it's
ma'am.
on my own property.
Not on your own property,
Yeah.
no.
I understand, okay, what was told to me was that because there's no fence on the front yard, now I'm asking because I just want to know what the answer really is, that's considered open access or public area, and as a result, in order to open carry on my own property on the front yard, without a fence, I have to do the concealed carry permit process.
Go ahead.
That would
Anybody-
certainly not be my interpretation.
Interesting.
And just for clarity purposes, effective January 1st, it's no longer considered a concealed carry license, it's just a license to carry. So, I mean, terminology matters in this case, but
Okay.
yeah, that would not be my interpretation on your own premises.
Does the lawyer want to weigh in?
Well, I can tell you this.
But you got to
It's the lawyer I'm
remember.
going to have to deal with, not you nice people.
Well, no, but if you want to, really upstream, you want to make sure that we're on the same page with law enforcement, because it doesn't get to me if there's nothing
Yeah.
that they need to take action on. I can tell you, I've been working with the county attorney's office since 2001, and since that time, I have not had a situation where charges were filed on anyone standing in their front yard just with their weapon.
Okay.
Usually there's an altercation that ensues, and then you start getting into where you're in your property or someone else's. So what I think law enforcement is saying, the safest route is to.
Talking gardening in my own front yard.
Oh, I know, but the safest route on that is to, if you have
Yeah.
your license to carry, then you don't have to worry about boundaries or anything else. But no, as far as on your own property, I've never seen anything brought by
Interesting.
law enforcement for
I
that.
appreciate your time, thank you.
I was on, I asked about that one, the fellow had about the holster. Is there a particular restriction on the holsters? I mean, they have to have the flap or shoulder holster or inside the pants or nothing like that? There's nothing? Because I've got one on 357, it's got a cover over it, and it's hard to tell. It's not something that you'd carry otherwise.
You know, the only restriction is it either has to be in a shoulder holster or in a holster on your belt.
Okay, it is. Okay, thank you, sir.
I do believe that in the effective January 1 in the new training, if someone is now going to get a license, there has to be a component to discuss retention and holsters and such, but there's nothing in the statute that we're aware of that dictates what kind of holster that has to be, other than it has to be a shoulder holster or a belt holster.
Good evening. I just had a quick question about once you are approached by an officer and you show him your ID, is he just supposed to call it in, look at it, say, this looks okay, and you're free to go?
Yeah, that's what we hope will happen. I mean, we expect that, once this goes into effect, people are going to start they'll see you walking with your open carry weapon, and that's unusual. And they're not used to seeing that. We have lots of people carrying concealed, nobody knows about it. So we expect we're going to get some of those calls, which is why we started the protocol of asking a little bit more in-depth questions, trying to determine, first off, whether or not they're doing anything wrong, because we don't want to come up and hassle somebody that's not doing anything wrong. So, if we ended up in a situation where we were like that, we were able to determine that you are lawfully carrying, we'll be on our way. That's kind of what we hope will happen, is it'll be a nice, short, easy conversation, and we'll be back to business.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening.
Evening.
I've heard a lot of reports that other counties are starting to post the 30-7 and 30-6 in municipal and county buildings, more so now that the new year is coming up. Is Williamson County planning on posting more signs on their county or municipal buildings?
Well, I think we were just talking about this earlier when we were in the other room, that we're starting to notice some more businesses that are getting ahead of this and putting it up, which is their right to do if they don't want concealed or open carry. I can't tell you whether or not everybody's going to do it. I think everybody has to, each individual entity is going to have to make their own decision on that.
More specifically, I read a report either last night or this morning about Nueces County pulling their metal detectors from the inside of the courthouse to the entrance of the courthouse, where in Nueces County, the county clerk's office, the county assessor's office are all on the first floor, and it used to be where the metal detectors were only going into the courthouse, the court area of it. In Williamson County, where the county clerk's office is in the basement and you have the metal detectors on the first floor,
Right.
Is there any way of getting to the county clerk's office without going through a metal detector?
And that's a purely county issue for that, and the discussions have been going on. I've been involved in those discussions. Unfortunately, that's above my pay grade for what the final decision will be, and we expect to release that, or I expect them to release that, I would hope this week, at the latest at the beginning of next week, so that we know. Everything has been discussed, because you have a very good point there, and I know that there's several questions to the AG as far as how that's going to be handled. You know how our courthouse is currently, which is the gates are right at the front, and you are correct, there's a portion in the basement for the county clerk's office. So because I have not been given the edict on which route they're going to take, but all scenarios have been discussed and are being contemplated, I was hoping to have an answer for just such a question tonight, but it hasn't been given to me yet.
Understood. Thank you.
Question that has come in on Twitter from Comp Sci Teacher. She says, many wonder, are businesses allowed to ban open carry? If someone has gun on your property, can you assume they're hostile? Maybe, Jim, you guys can go over the types of businesses that can opt in or opt out of concealed and open carry?
Sure. You want to
Yeah.
handle some of that?
Yeah, I'll take it. A private business has the option of whether or not they want to allow license to carry, whether it be concealed or open in their business. If they choose to allow both, then there's no action required on their part. There's no requirement to post any signs. If they want to restrict open carry and/or concealed carry, then they would need to post the signage in a conspicuous manner out front, and there's examples of the signage up front here. They could either post a 3006 sign, which is for the concealed carry, a 3007 sign, which is for the open carry, or both. If the signs are posted, they have to meet statutory language, which these signs do, 1-inch block lettering in contrasting colors. Or the other method they could use if they choose not to post the signs but still want to prohibit it, which is someone comes in the store, they can provide them a card with the same language on it, or they can tell them verbally that they don't want open carry or concealed carry in their establishment. In regard to the second part of the question, I mean, we would encourage people, when we discussed this earlier, it's much like driving a car. You don't assume that someone driving a car is committing an unlawful act. The fact of the matter is, effective January 1st, open carry, people that are open carrying are in compliance, generally speaking, that we know of with the law, and I don't know why you would treat them like they're hostile coming into your establishment. That is not a course of action. When we do our training for city staff about how to deal with open carry in city buildings, it's kind of the same thing. We don't assume the worst of anybody, and nor should anybody. The people that are open carrying, the vast majority of them that will be open carrying are law-abiding citizens and need to be treated as such.
Come on.
All right. Hey. I currently from Mississippi, and I kind of go back and forth between Round Rock and Mississippi because my wife here and my job kind of back to back. I currently obtained a Mississippi firearms permit, and I was told Texas recognized certain state, and Mississippi is one of them. And also, it is enhanced where I received proper training 4 to 8 hours, sometimes every other month. Just keep everything up. So I want to make sure, is that, how does that stand?
That is true. Texas does, they have a unilateral and reciprocal agreements with other states. You can go to the Department of Public Safety website, and that's got the requirements for each state. You can just click on Mississippi, and it'll tell you exactly the information that you're looking for.
And one more thing I was told, it'll help out, which, I think I don't have no problem with. They say it's better, if I can go down and get my CHL for Texas, at least to know.
Sure.
But I still be able to keep my Mississippi because it's still current and fairly new.
Right.
There shouldn't be no problem?
Shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, thanks.
I'd like to reiterate something that Assistant Chief Cheetah was talking about earlier about, it's one of the concerns we have is people trying to attach this hostile thing to somebody having a weapon on them because it's new. And the fact is that, most of the folks that we're going to encounter with open carry are going to be law-abiding citizens. They're just exercising their right to carry their weapon in the open. So consider that, we really want the public to consider that going forward when they see something like this out in the public, to take the situation for what it is, see if the individual's doing something that's, illegal, or they're just exercising their rights.
Yeah, one of the things we told city staff is, in dealing with an irate customer, how you would deal with an irate customer today is exactly the same way we'd want you to deal with an irate customer on January 5th, whether or not you can see a weapon. Because the reality is concealed carry in Texas has been around for a long time. And the folks that are coming in may very well be concealed carriers, and you never know it. So the fact that the weapon is now visible should not change the dynamic of how we treat people. So that's kind of what we're passing along to our city staff.
Twitter. Here we go. I have another question from Twitter from Ron Smith. He wants to know, will a drop-down holster attached to a belt be considered a proper open carry holster?
Yes, as long as it's attached to the belt. Any other questions? You guys got some really good questions tonight.
Can you guys do me a and go over just a little bit of an overview in terms of where you are? Will employees of the city of Georgetown be able to open carry? Will employees of city of Round Rock be able to open carry?
That's a good question, because there's, in the law, there's really two dynamics, especially as far as like a local government is concerned. There's the local government as local government, and then local government as an employer. And as an employer, the local government maintains certain rights that all other employers have in terms of, and the city of Georgetown has traditionally not allowed employees to carry weapons, and that will not change. We will continue to not allow the carrying of concealed or open carried weapons. However, the only dynamic that has changed is we now cannot, as a municipality or an employer, cannot prohibit an employee from having that weapon in their car. So that would be the only dynamic that's changed. But yes, the city of Georgetown will continue to not allow employees to carry weapons on their person during the course of their business day.
And it's exactly the same for the city of Round Rock. We have city and departmental policy that addresses that. So unless your job entitles you to carry a weapon like a police officer, you will not be allowed to.
So my question pertains to deep concealment as a concealed weapons license holder. You know, we have to conform to law to be in deep concealment at all times. Can't flash your weapon. We want to keep that, you know, completely out of sight. Does the new law change that in any way? Does it give any leniency toward the concealed weapons holder?
I would say I don't think it specifically addresses it, but for me, it's kind of a common sense conclusion that if you're allowed to open carry, that if your concealed carry is printing,
Yeah.
I don't see that being really something that we'd be too concerned about. You know, I don't think there's anything in statute that draws a distinction or that was changed, but it just seems to be a common sense conclusion that if you can open carry, then we're not going to be too concerned about if you're printing. So
Right. That was my thought process too. Thank you for answering.
I have a question from Christopher Collins, actually from Facebook. He wants to know, does this change the law for open carrying of long arms and black powder guns?
That one?
Very specific
Doesn't-
question.
No change that I'm aware of.
no changes that we're aware of.
Of discussion that you guys can actually detail is, when should a person call police? You know, when is that opportune time that you reach out and say, I think there's an issue, there's a problem, I might need law enforcement? Talk about that.
No, that's a good question, Angelique. You know, it can vary from situation to situation, but you know, I tend to always go back to when the little hairs on the back of your neck are standing up, and you know somebody's doing something that you just really think is not right. That's the time to call the police department. You know, we don't want to ever discourage anyone from calling the police department if they think there's a problem. We prefer you call us rather than not. You know, because we can always get there and sort it out and find out whether or not it's anything we even need to be there for in the first place. So I would encourage you, if you think something's wrong, give the police department a call.
And I think part of our responsibility is balancing one citizen's right to be concerned versus another citizen's right to exercise their right to carry under the law. And that's always going to be the challenge for us, and is to make sure that we're balancing those rights for both, and allaying their concerns while not unduly inconveniencing the person who is just exercising their right under the law.
Questions keep coming in on social media, definitely here. Open Carry Texas would like to know if you can please detail the limitations on where open carry is allowed and not, specifically on college campuses. Obviously, this kind of goes into the campus carry territory, so If you can speak to that some, just let us know what you know about that.
Sure, we'll take a little of that. You know, there are still some places that are prohibited, government buildings, school buildings, sporting events, polling places, courts and jails, secure areas of airports. I think Dee can speak a little more to the campus carry portion of it.
Well, it also depends on whether you're talking about a public university or a private institution. Private institutions will have more of an option, but that has to be, there's a long procedure that has to take place, and we've already been in communication with a couple of our private institutions and about the procedures that they would have to follow if they want to not have weapons on their campuses. But that's a long procedure, and that's the reason for the delayed effective date. So with a lot of these issues with campus carry, we're gonna have to wait and see and be responsive and answer the questions as far as what our campuses are choosing to do in any particular circumstance, especially our private institutions, which we have several of those.
Coming in from Facebook from Tom. Could the Williamson County official please give an overview of the difference between CHL laws versus license to carry?
Well, as of a few days from now, we're going to be licensed to carry. So I don't understand the specifics. I'll go into any detail, but mostly you're going to, if you already have your license, you're good to go on January of 2016 for open carry. And there are several statutes that I'll show you our book about how many of them, because we span before effective date and after effective date, about every portion of the statute that they have placed in there that has what is good for a few more days of this year and what takes effect in 2016. It all has to do with open carry and a lot of the questions that have been asked here in this room tonight on social media.
John Taplin from Facebook wants to know, how will officers handle a traffic stop where a handgun is in a holster in view of the officer?
You know, that's part of our training as well, you know, recognizing now that we do have the open carry portion of it. That is a traffic stop is a legal detention. You know, they'll probably ask the individual if he has his open carry, and they're entitled to at that point. So, you know, they're aware that it's going to happen at some point. I really don't expect it to be a huge issue for us.
Yeah, I don't see open carry being a game changer. We've been dealing with years with concealed carry on traffic stops, and you know, I think, you know, for me personally, making traffic stops, it's never been an issue. I personally am not one to ever disarm on a routine traffic stop. I don't see a need for that most of the time. I don't see there being any significant changes in regards to a traffic stop just because of open carry. I think most police officers are far more worried about weapons and people that they can't see than the ones they can, and know who is carrying those unlawfully versus lawfully.
Just some thoughts are running through my head what the gentleman just talking about. It's my understanding that inside of our vehicle is considered our own property, and there is no license to carry at all. So theoretically, if it's on us, we wouldn't need a license. It would be on our property. Am I looking at that correctly?
No, not exactly.
Okay.
If you have a license to carry, then that weapon it would have to be in the, either concealed on your person, or it would have to be in the shoulder holster or the holster. If you do not have a license at all, the law does provide that you can have the handgun in the car, but it absolutely must be concealed. So if you do not have a license to carry and that handgun is just, say, laying on the passenger seat, that is technically a violation of the law. You have to have the license to carry, or if you do not, it must be concealed in the car.
But not concealed on you?
Yeah, it just has to be concealed. It doesn't specify whether it needs to be under the seat or whatever. It could still be on you inside the car.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much.
Angelique, we have any more questions from Twitter?
Actually, we do. Some detailed questions, and I'll go ahead and pose that to you. We have Pat Johnson, and he gives a very thorough example of that, but the short form is, if both 30.07 and 30.06 signs are posted, a concealed rifle is still okay. If not, 46.03 should be listed, right? Are you familiar with 46.03 that he's referencing at all? Can you speak to that at all?
I guess it kind of depends on where you're talking about to answer that question properly. Like in this forum, say this were a council meeting, a 3006 and a 3007 sign would govern the handguns, but not necessarily a rifle. Those signs are statutory in nature. You would really need just a generalized no firearm sign to go along with it to prohibit the rifle in the room. And again, that would then invoke 3005, regular criminal trespass, versus anything else, because there's no statutory regulation other than of rifles, other than, of course, like short-barreled rifles and fully automatic weapons. But I think if I'm answering that right, because there's just a lot of variables in that particular question, depending on where you're at.
And it also sounds like that question has a lot to do with notice. Is this an area that, you know, there's a lot of questions as far as where people will be able to take weapons and when they won't, and whether it's 46.03, whether it's 035. And what we've talked about up here is the best way is to make sure that everything is posted. From a criminal nature, it goes to intentionally or knowingly doing something. And so even though you're prohibited, most of the discussion here has been given, sir or ma'am, this is an area that's prohibited, and give an opportunity for them to comply. So again, it's not, you cross this line and you're going straight to jail. It's kind of like with the airport. You know, hey, oops, may happen, don't know if you knew this, here's what's going on. And what we hope and expect is we'll have compliance at that point. So it sounds like there's a lot of notice in that question. And that is a good question, and we are encouraging anyone who contacts us to put as much notice as possible, especially if it's considered a prohibited area.
Great, thank you for that. I'd like to just reiterate the fact that most, if not all, the questions from tonight will be compiled and included on a frequently asked questions webpage on the City of Round Rock website. So if for some reason you don't get to take enough notes or you need clarification, please log on to roundrocktexas.gov/police and look under FAQs. We'll have all of this information listed and, of course, updated as things develop. Obviously, this topic is a developing situation, and we want to make sure that everyone is up to date on everything. So keep that in mind.
Angelique, we want to take a second here for Dee to introduce some of the folks that he brought from his office.
And that goes along with what she was saying is so that if there's questions for anyone following today, which I expect there will be, our office is available to do the best we can to answer any of those questions. Tonight, I have several people here from my office just because we want this to go as smoothly as law enforcement does, as much as the community. With me today, and if y'all stand up just real quick so the audience here, if y'all have questions for them after we're done, please track them down. That's what they're here for tonight. And we'll post their information as well as the general information for the county attorney's office on the same information page. But I have my chief investigator, Melissa Hightower, which is our liaison with law enforcement. Shannon Francis, who's a prosecutor in our office, deals a lot with governmental premises questions that we have and that we're fielding from different entities as well as our own. And I know there were some questions here tonight that I couldn't give you a final answer, sir. I think you had that question. If you have follow-up questions, this is the young lady. I'll available too, but they're all here with information on this topic. Matt Watkins is here. He's done a lot of research and looked at other instances of nights like tonight too to see if there's questions that we could be prepared to answer or going forward that we need to answer. And then Brian Class, my criminal division chief. So a lot of the questions y'all had is the interaction with the community and law enforcement. And I just want to assure you that, like tonight, it's been great because our local law enforcement, especially Round Rock and Georgetown, stay in constant communication. And this is not something we just started looking at a few minutes before we walked into this meeting tonight. Law enforcement has been visiting with us with a lot of the questions that y'all have had and running through scenarios. And we agree with the approach that these two agencies are, that we just want to make sure that everyone can go forward and enjoy their rights without any problems. And so we will be available with an on-call phone or us personally to law enforcement 24/7 as this, in case questions come up.
Angelique, the crowd's done a very good job of answering or asking all the questions that you wanted to cover tonight. So do you have some more from the feeds, or anybody else out here have another question they'd like to ask us?
Definitely, the Twitter sphere is talking.
Hold on a second. This gentleman right here would like to ask us a
Go
question.
for it.
Will there be a way to know, before you go to a restaurant or a bookstore, will there be a way to know beforehand who's got the 3006 or 3007 listed?
You mean like some posted site or something like that?
Yeah,
or-
like, is there a way just to find out in the city or in the county who's posting?
I'm not aware of anybody that's doing anything like that.
I thought I heard someone, when I first got in here, saying something about a site, but I don't know, I don't know what that site is.
It's just
or
gonna be a
where to go.
parking lot issue, basically, just, you get to the place, go back to the car, put your firearm away. All right, thanks.
30.6.org, I believe.
Okay.
Texas 3006, do a search for that.
Texas3006.org.
I think it's org.
Okay, thank you.
There's also an app called Posted. It's user-generated, so
Okay.
always up to
Okay.
date.
I'm sorry, could you say that a little louder? I couldn't hear. I want to make sure everybody else hears.
There's an app called Posted,
Post it.
and it's user-generated, so if you come across a place that's not on the app, you can add it, or if they
Okay.
change their policy, you can take it away.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I have a question on Facebook. They sent it to me instead of you. It says, okay, if open carry, ask if open carry in a vehicle with a console-mounted holster is okay.
Console-mounted
Mounted
holster.
holster.
Goes back to what you
Corey,
were
I think
saying.
you already covered that.
Right. If they have a license to carry?
Just with the open carry law.
I'm gonna say no. It has to be in a shoulder holster. For it to be
Or belt.
visible, it has to be a shoulder holster or a belt holster. Otherwise, it has to be concealed.
And if they have the license, it's okay.
No.
No.
If they have the license to carry, it either has to be concealed or it has to be shoulder holster or belt holster. It
Okay.
cannot be on a holster mounted on the dash or something like that.
Yeah, it just says on a console-mounted holster, if that's okay. Thank you.
I have a question about the procedure of if there is a call and you are open carrying, what we should expect from law enforcement in that situation, because you can go online and see a lot of different videos of police officers getting out of their cars, guns ready to go on somebody who's open carrying. I just want to know the procedure to expect from those officers in that scenario.
Yeah, we certainly can't speak for a lot of other agencies. We speak for what our officers are trained to do, and, we've already started this process. We've gone through extensive training, with our guys to talk about these situations in particular. So, you should expect to be encountered by the officer, speak with you. Again, I can't just blanket put it out there. It really depends on the situation. Because we run into all kinds of different things. It's entirely possible that the situation that it is described or that the officers come up to, they may have their weapons out. So I can't say yes or no, but certainly a situation where you were sitting on a park bench, you would probably have the officer just walk up and talk to you and say, we got a call on this, do you have an open carry license or, license to carry? And we'd be on our way from there. So it's tough to pigeonhole one answer for that because there's so many variables that could happen.
Just as a reminder, folks, if you do have something to say, please come up to the mic so that everyone that is on the live stream can hear your comments and what you're saying. Another question has come in from Twitter from Ashley Casanova Lloyd. She wants to know, if you already have a CHL license, will you receive a different license to carry after open carry comes in?
No, you're good to go.
Just until your renewal time, and then you'll get the new license, which of course then just becomes a license to carry.
Another question has come in. What should a citizen do if a business tells them they can't have their gun exposed, but don't have the business posted sign?
Well, the business has the right to ask them to leave.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, they're giving them the verbal notice, and they would need to leave.
I'd like an elaboration a little bit more that goes along with that question. If neither one of these signs are posted at a private establishment, who has the right to give me notice? Can it be just anybody? Like if I go to a restaurant, can it be the server? Does it have to be a manager? Can it be a security officer? Who has the right to give me that notice?
Well, it could probably be any one of those. Is anyone who has the authority of the business to do so. And if the business is given the wait staff or the manager, whoever, the authority to speak on behalf of the business, then they can do that.
Okay, well, if a server is not comfortable with me in the restaurant and they tell me that, and on my way out, a manager goes, no, we allow it, then does that override it?
Well, that's a really good question. We'd probably end up being called at that point. So I imagine we would come sort that out for you.
It sounds like the manager and the server probably need to have some dialogue.
Yeah. I don't know that you want to be in the middle of that internal battle they have going on, but from a legal standpoint, it's who has the apparent authority to give permission for you to be there or the apparent authority for you to leave. In that instance, it would be hard to prosecute in that instance if both of those, the server and the manager, truly do work for that establishment and they're telling you conflicting things. It would be hard, but you're right, law enforcement's going to be called and they're going to have to sort it out at that point.
You know, and quite frankly, at least as far as the business community in Georgetown is concerned, I have no idea what any of them are going to do at this point. We through the chamber, sent out just information about if they wanted to post signs, they had to do this. If they didn't, they don't have to do anything. And said, if you have any questions, give us a call. And we have not heard from any businesses. So right now, I could not tell you what a single solitary business in Georgetown is going to do in regards to this issue. I know some of them on the square are not going to be real happy if they have to put up, you know, the signs are pretty big, as you can see. But I mean, it is what it is. So, but I have no idea what they're going to do right now.
I have another question from Facebook. Would a person have to conceal a weapon if they are dropping off a child at the local school district, not actually entering the premise, such as in the vehicle drop-off line?
That goes back to the earlier questions that were answered as far as a visible gun within a vehicle. If it's displayed, I think the question earlier was on top of a console or something like that. That's going to be a violation right there, even if there wasn't in a school pickup line. So a lot of those questions, look at the answers to those earlier in regards to that question.
If you guys could just take a moment, Jim, I know all of the things that we are in the process of doing at the Round Rock Police Department. Moving forward, what are some of the things that you are doing with the county and also in Georgetown? And if you could speak to what we're doing, our efforts here locally in Round Rock, in addition to this forum, when it comes to educating the public and in enforcing open carry.
Sure. We have some public service announcements that will be going out through our webpage. We should be going out over the Christmas break. That is the plan at this point. Some different scenarios that'll kind of give a demonstration of what you might encounter out in the real world and what to do. Just some little suggestions from our police department. Corey?
Kind of the same thing. Like I just finished saying, we sent a letter out to the business community via the chamber. So we've reached out to the business community in that manner. We'll be doing a lunch and learn. The earliest we get is mid-January. With the chamber, if anybody has any, if the business community has any questions. Of course, we're doing, city staff has to have an understanding of the new changes to the law, and then of course our officers internally about how to respond to the calls for service. So kind of a three-pronged approach.
And additionally, as Dee said earlier, a big part of what we do in law enforcement is just staying in touch with their office. And when we come into areas that we're not sure how to interpret, we want to make sure we're talking with them on a consistent basis to get the best possible answers so that we're doing the right thing. And that'll continue for us as well.
And we've already asked our local law enforcement agencies, as issues come up, if it doesn't rise to the level, they need to even visit with us, or if we visit on an issue and we see it coming up over and over again, then that's something we share amongst ourselves so that we can get it out to the public. Hey, this issue has been coming up, here's how it's been handled, and so that hopefully we can not see that in the future. But we won't know those until they start happening, but we anticipate there'll probably be some that come up. And we may not see it over and over in one jurisdiction, but we'll see it over and over amongst several of our jurisdictions. And that's the best thing we can do from a local law enforcement standpoint, is to share that with each other, because if Round Rock's already handled it and they had a good way of resolving it without any problem, then if we share that with Georgetown or they share with one another, then Georgetown can avoid it altogether. And that's what we're really hoping for. And that's what's happened so far in preparing for this. So.
That's great. Obviously, we're taking a proactive approach at this. I know here in Round Rock, we're also working in great detail with the local school district on this same exact topic. So things are definitely in the works, and we're partnering with not only local businesses, the school system as well. I have an additional question that was just submitted by Mia Escobar. She'd like to know, what do you do if you start getting harassed for open carrying? What are your recommendations?
You can always contact the police department if you're having an issue with somebody.
It also depends the nature of of what they consider harassment and what's going on. There are some laws in the penal code. Again, you'd contact law enforcement to get it done, but they may be committing an offense in the manner in which they're approaching this issue. So.
That sounds good to me.
Good answer.
That's an example of Georgetown taking what Round Rock is doing and making it work for them. That's good.
Now.
I remind everybody that tonight's broadcast has been recorded, and it will be available for viewing online at roundrocktexas.gov/TV and on our city YouTube channel. I notice we are getting several repeat questions, but we are going to post questions from tonight's forum on our webpage under frequently asked questions, so you can go back and take a look at that on our webpage at a later date. That's it.
Any other questions here in the House?
All right. Okay, go ahead.
And just something about, when you say on the belt, that has to be on a leather belt, correct? That has to be on a leather belt,
Well,
correct?
not necessarily a leather belt, a belt.
A belt. So
Yes, sir.
the clip, clip inside the waistband is not considered a belt. That is a,
No.
I don't even necessarily think it has to be the belt. It has to be the holster on the waist. So, I mean, because you could have an inside the waistband holster.
right, but some of those you can also clip inside your pocket, and that's.
Not in the pocket.
That's probably not going to cover.
That
Like I
was
said,
basically my question.
That's something that was left fairly unclear, is what is a holster? So, I mean, I don't want to see someone walking down the road with a sandwich bag on their hip and a gun stuck in it, but stranger things have happened.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
How's it going? Now, as a CHO holder, I was curious, is local law enforcement going to want us to open carry? What are y'all's recommendations as a citizen?
It's your right to do so. We support your right to do so.
Now, is open carry supposed to act as a deterrent from crime starting in the first place?
If you're asking my opinion, I don't necessarily know that it will, but it's just a law that allows you to do it, and it's entirely up to you whether or not you do it. I would not make a recommendation, on behalf of our department for something like that. It's something you have to decide on your own.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, got another question.
Where else is open carry allowed?
Where else is it allowed?
Yeah, what other states or,
Oh,
is
there's-
Texas
I
not the
believe
first
it's
one,
40
right?
46
Oh, no.
other states.
How many states?
I believe it's 46, right? 44?
I think CJ's saying 44.
44.
Yeah,
There's my expert back there.
we're definitely, we're not the first, but we're close to being the last.
Important thing is we're not last.
Yes, we're not last.
That leads to my question is there any statistics about any like rage crimes, like because someone has a gun and they're in road rage or they're dealing with a situation like that where they instantaneously just, well, I've got a gun, I'm going to use it. I mean, what are the statistics on that kind of shootings?
I don't have statistics that I could spout off to you, but I can tell you my personal experience in the state of Texas with concealed carry is those type of incidents with people that are lawfully carrying a handgun has been very, very low. They know what's at, these are your law-abiding citizens that know what's at stake, and you don't see that very, I mean, I can't think of a time in my personal career in the last 20 years where I've had to deal with an issue like that with someone who was lawfully carrying a handgun.
So the other states haven't posted any rise in rage crimes or instantaneous, somebody going off because they have a gun, they're able to use it?
I'm not aware of any information like that.
Well, that's good.
Hey, so as an open carrier, if you're stopped, are you allowed to just be at like PD? Are they allowed to just ask you for your permit to see it? Or if so, where does that end? Like, is that state police, local police, security, restaurant staff?
Well, what the law says is that, the police can ask you to display your license. As we said earlier, we're not going to use that here in Round Rock and Georgetown as well. That's not going to be the basis for our stop to detain anybody. We want to make sure we have some sort of lawful or unlawful act that has occurred or that we suspect has occurred before we do that.
Okay, so where does that end? Is that just with PD or peace officers, or like, say, is that like security guards?
Yeah,
in
it
an
wouldn't be
establishment?
security guards or
Nothing of that sort?
No, that's one thing we're making clear to our city staff is our city staff has no lawful right to ask someone who's open carrying to present their license.
Okay.
They don't have the statutory right to do that.
Okay.
So yeah, some random person can't just walk up to you and ask you if you have.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Right.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
I'm just probably making a statement, is that now I get pulled over by chance, like a taillight's out or I'm speeding. And the first thing I'm supposed to do when an officer comes up is tell him I have a concealed gun license. Shouldn't we still do something like that, even with the open carry? If we're pulled over, to tell the officer right away that you have a license to carry and tell them where your gun is.
There's nothing wrong with that.
And it seems like that'd be the logical thing to do.
Sure, absolutely.
You're not giving up any rights
No,
by any means to do that.
no, it's,
Because I want the officer to feel at ease,
yeah, I'm sure.
because there's plenty of times when you probably don't feel at ease.
Yeah, well, I'm sure most of us would appreciate it. So,
Thank you.
Actually, I have one more question. Are partnering states that recognize CHL or Texas CHL laws, are they going to recognize Texas open carry laws as well?
Neighboring states?
Well, I'm like our partner states, like our other states that recognize our Texas CHL laws, like in Louisiana, we go over there and still conceal carry because they recognize our CHL laws in Texas. Are they going to recognize our open carry law as well?
I think that probably depends on the individual state.
Yeah.
You'd have to check with that state. I'm not sure.
Okay.
It'd just be
I was
blanket.
wondering are they going to update their system? Because I know that we have a certain states that recognize our CHL laws. I'm wondering if all those will recognize open carry laws also.
Yeah, I do know that the website for DPS, that you can go to the state that you're interested in, and it will tell you what agreement they have with Texas.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, if we have no more questions,
Just to remind folks with Round Rock Police, please follow our social media platforms. We are on Instagram and Twitter. If you don't follow us already, look us up. We're at Round Rock Police. If you are on Facebook, connect with us online at facebook.com/Round Rock Police Department. To reiterate, this broadcast will be available on the city's YouTube page as well as our city website. If you have any follow-up questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. We're here for you.
I'd like to thank all of you for coming out tonight, spending a little time with us and communicating. Thank you for all the wonderful questions, for being polite, respectful. We really appreciate it. I want to thank Assistant Chief Cheetah for coming down and Dee Hobbs for coming down from the County Attorney's Office. And again, thanks to the City of Round Rock for letting us use the facilities. Y'all have a wonderful night. Thank you for coming down.